Welcome to the Obvious Podcast. This is episode number 97. My name is Sonny. I'm the COO at ABC Florida East Coast.
And I'm Peter Daiga, the president and CEO at ABC Florida East Coast.
You are listening or watching to The Obvious, where all opinions expressed are our own unless we say otherwise.
Subscribe on any major podcast platform or watch us in action on YouTube. Follow The Obvious Podcast on Instagram, X, True Social, and TikTok. All the links you need are in the show notes. And if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. This is the best way for others to find our show. And reach out to us anytime at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. And if you're enjoying the ride, help others find us again by leaving a review wherever you listen. Happy Friday, Sonny.
Happy Friday. I know it's been a week since you got back. How's your jet lag?
Good.
Good?
Yeah.
Better?
Coming back was a little easier because you get the time.
You get the time back, yeah.
And as long as you stay awake and you have a good night's sleep. So, yeah, pretty good.
Excellent. Maybe we can talk about your trip on a future episode.
Okay.
That was certainly the posts were very interesting.
All right.
But today, our episode is titled Workforce Development 101.
Okay.
And,
101.
101.
All right.
And the impetus of this episode, I had a meeting with a subcontractor trade association, like a national trade association for one of the subcontracting trades.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm. And they don't have any sort of an education platform for their trade in Florida. And one of our ABCI board members knows some of their board leadership, and he asked me to have lunch with them this past week. And most of that lunch was really sort of going into the basics, defining apprenticeship, defining sort of the different vernacular, talking about the nomenclatures, right, and how Florida does apprenticeship.
Okay.
The difference between workforce development, upskilling versus growing the labor pool. And it just I realized we talk about it a lot because we've been at it for 51 years and we're the largest apprenticeship provider in the state of Florida. But there's a lot of people who hear the terminology and the phrasing in pop media and culture and on the news, but don't really understand what the words mean and don't really understand sort of the implication of the vocabulary that they're using. So I thought...
Sure. We talk about that a lot.
We talk about that all the time.
People pass around this word, in particular apprenticeship, and they don't really mean...
And they think it's a jobs program.
It's a jobs program.
Yeah. So I really wanted to do like an episode where we sort of put on the record sort
Let
of
me
the
ring
basics.
the bell. Sounds like the whole episode's
The whole episode will be the bell.
All right.
Again, if you don't know what this is about, we will not tell you. But if you have a guess, send us an email, and if you're correct, you'll get a free prize.
Yeah, we should do this like a rolling over thing, like the lottery.
Okay.
That if nobody guesses this week, that
So you get two
doubles
prizes
next week.
Okay.
And then I don't know. What do you
Get a
think
better.
about
Yeah,
that?
that's a great idea.
And we could say like this week, the lottery, the guess the bell purpose is up to,
Yeah,
so
5 awards or whatever.
we'll start low at $1, double it. Or
Yeah, I don't think we can give cash out because there must be some
Cards.
There you go.
gift cards.
Gift cards. So I wanted to have a conversation with you because, and one of the biggest reasons I wanted to talk about this is all over sort of the news and socials, and everybody's like, oh, the trades. And I mean, my gosh, every conversation I have, AI will never have any impact on the trades. It's like the jobs are safe. Oh, look at how much money electricians make and the AC guys make. Everybody's talking about it. And I know that's a fairly recent sort of cultural phenomenon that has really taken over. Certainly this country, I'm assuming Europe's having the same conversation, but certainly here it has really become a topic of conversation. So being the subject matter experts that we are, I figured I would ask you some questions because you have probably forgotten more about apprenticeship than I'll ever know. So I figured I'll ask the questions and we can have a conversation about like just defining the words and what it is.
All right. Sounds fun.
And specifically what it means in Florida.
All right.
So you and I have a lot of meetings with a lot of elected officials and school board members and bureaucrats, and we talk about apprenticeship all the time, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It has really skyrocketed as a topic of conversation.
Absolutely.
And
by the way, let me say something about that. That didn't. And this is I'm taking a line from your lexicon or vocabulary. That didn't happen in a vacuum, or that didn't happen overnight.
Right.
It's not like we just woke up and
Right.
all of a sudden there's great
Everybody's like,
conversations.
let's talk about the
it took a lot of different people for many, many years, I think, trying to promote this concept, and it's finally got a little bit of momentum and whatnot. So that's great. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the conversation, the national conversation, the state conversation was maybe a little ahead of that curve, I think, in Florida. And again, I think we were a part of that conversation for a long time.
Absolutely.
When nobody was listening, so in any event. And what do we mean by that? We mean it's a positive conversation about the value of this form of post-secondary education or this form of education. So
exactly. So before we get into that, can you, and I don't necessarily mean like a dictionary definition, but like just based on your vast experience in this sector, can you just give us some basic definitions? Like what's workforce development? What's vocational training? What's CTE? You'll hear CTE all the time thrown about in conversations. Kind of let's just define those for our audience so everybody sort of is on the same page.
Okay. All of them? Which one?
Let's start with workforce development. Because everybody says workforce development, but a lot of people see it as bringing more people in as a jobs program.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say technically workforce development doesn't necessarily have to be, in my mind, workforce development can be any program, any effort that kind of helps develop the workforce of the future.
Okay.
All right. And that might be a combination of people with more traditional bachelor's degrees, like project or estimators and project managers and whatnot in our industry. I mean, I would say that could be part of workforce development. When we talk about, for example, our ABC student chapters and the competition and all that, to me, that's part of workforce development.
Absolutely.
But then I think there's on a different level, I think a lot of people, when they talk about that, they primarily are thinking about the non-degree granting types of education and the more the certificate type granting education opportunities. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I mean, I think that's in general, but I think that's maybe limiting in some ways because it's workforce development just means the workforce of the future. How do we get there? How do we develop that workforce that we all need, that the industry needs?
So developing new workforce and developing the existing workforce.
Correct.
Right. So okay. So CTE, what does that mean?
That's just a fancy bureaucratic term for career and technical education. It's kind of replaces the old shop.
Yeah.
But now we call it kind of career and technical education. So,
and that's just the same thing as trades or skilled trades or
pretty much
trades education or anything like that. Okay. So let's talk about sort of the big kahuna tuna, which is apprenticeship.
Sure.
How do you define apprenticeship? What does apprenticeship mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and I would say the most basic thing you have to understand about apprenticeship, and again, it can mean different things in different states, and in fact, it does.
Right.
And sometimes it can mean very legal thing, which it does in the state of Florida. But I think conceptually, in our mind, when you talk about apprenticeship, you're talking about some form of education that develops a person's knowledge and skill with a combination of like technical instruction or classroom instruction as well as experiential instruction, if you will.
So on the job
training and supervision and whatnot. So it's a combination of those two. That's one of the number one thing I think that sets apprenticeship apart. The number two thing that's also often missed, I think, is it's about developing the most well-rounded person in that trade.
Okay.
And there is there's some debate in this day and age about whether that day has come and gone. You don't maybe want every person in the trade being a really well-rounded trade professional. A lot of people want somebody with just, some basic tasks that they can perform day in and day out and do it well. And you got to realize, again, apprenticeship is about developing someone who knows everything from soup to nuts, from the most basic to the most complex of tasks in their individual trade. They are a true journeyman, a master, in their trade, and that's what apprenticeship is about, trying to develop.
So that's a very interesting point. This sort of the impetus of all of this was my lunch meeting with this sub trade association, right?
A national group that's interested in possibly having some apprenticeship
and sort of
available
because they want to support their industry and grow their industry, and so they had a meeting with us, and we would sort of be the provider of the education in their specific trade. But one of the things they talked about, and they were, we all had this conversation on how to grapple this idea. So they're in their trade.
Do they really want? Probably you had to have the whole.
Yeah.
Do you really want apprenticeship? Is that what you're really talking about?
That, and then, but for their workers, there's three pieces to the process. So there's the manufacturing. Then there's sort of and he used another word, and I'm blanking on it now, but it was just sort of preparing the item, and then the installation.
Okay.
And they basically told me that in their industry, all those three things used to be done by the same people, but now it's gotten completely segmented.
Okay.
So
There's
one
a good
group,
example.
right? There's a great example of what you were talking about. One group just does the manufacturing.
Yeah.
One group does all of the beautifying and the process of getting it ready for install.
Right.
And then a different group does the install.
Right.
And I think that to me is a fascinating sort of breakdown where you talk about this. And 50 years ago, and the guy told me this, 50 years ago, the same guy did all three things.
Right.
Right. But now it's
right. So if you had an apprenticeship program in that, you would need somebody who was a master in all three areas. So, and by the way, my definition is kind of where we're at today, but that doesn't get at the fact that we're having a very national conversation right now about what apprenticeship will be moving forward. So just because that's what it is today doesn't mean that, in particular, if the federal government, because they kind of drive a lot of this policy, even at the state level, if they determine that apprenticeship today can be something short of being a master, in your field, it could be just a subsection. Well, then that's the direction we're moving, and that's kind of a discussion and a battle I think that's going on right now. So
one of the things that I have always loved about apprenticeship as a form of education is I always loved the fact that it was sort of driven by the needs of the industry. I think sort of the traditional college education is very much sort of backwards, right? We will prepare the student for the first 2 years, and the next 2 years we'll prepare them in what the student wants.
And if you truly understand what apprenticeship is, there's a logical reason why that is so, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, and what is that? I mean, it's, if part of apprenticeship is 2,000 hours a year of on-the-job supervision and training, then you begin to realize it can't be anything but industry-led.
What's happening on the job.
Right, exactly, because if they don't have the need, for there, then it's, so in many ways, it's infinitely better than the higher ed model, which, pick your major and, and my proverbial underwater basket weaving or, and by the way, I think governments, in particular Florida, I think is doing a much better job of, what degrees we're granting and what we allow people to study in. And the needs should be related, which is, again, why apprenticeship is what it is, because it is by definition related to where the demand is.
And I do want to make this point about colleges and universities. There was a period of time, and I don't know if they still do this, but there was a period of time, and this was after I graduated undergrad. And I started seeing this, especially in a lot of the Ivy League, the elite institutions, and I think it spread, where they would tell students, I know Columbia does this, I know Harvard does this, come up with something that you want to be your major, right? And if some panel passes it, then that can be your major, right? It's insane. The historic college majors weren't enough. And I remember seeing this, there was a little clip on Instagram, and it was a graduation ceremony at Columbia, and it was some of the liberal arts school, and these kids are talking about their majors, right? And it was colonial fashion and its impact on people of color or something like that. Just absurdly made up majors. And it was just, it was blowing my mind because Columbia is not cheap. And you're like, oh, you can't pick between English.
By the way, when we say not cheap, we're not just, people should realize we're not talking about just cheap to the student and their parents.
Right, because somebody's
We're talking about, in most college university systems, the tuition is a fraction of the overall cost of the education. So in almost every case in a public college and university, the state is paying for a large portion of that education in their budget every year. So it's expensive. And again, you've seen the memes over the years, about the blue collar plumber paying for the, 75% of the tuition for somebody to go get that degree and, whatever.
It's absurd. So to me, the fact that you can't pick a major between English and psych and economics, that's too much for you. And I have make up your own major. That's, anyway.
Doesn't Florida have, I think Florida has some kind of a law where if there's a period of time where a graduate can't get a degree in their major. that the university somehow is penalized. So I think Florida has. We'll have to look that up.
Okay. So let's go back to our apprenticeship conversation.
Anyway, getting at my point.
Right.
About,
I get it.
There's a little bit of attention now being paid to look. If you're going to allow this to happen, and then they can't find because we're vested in this.
Right.
We paid for 75% of that education in the state of Florida. Yeah. So we want some kind of results that are actually preparing people for.
Yeah,
their futures, their productive futures.
I mean, we're asking people who's
mean for this to be a
no
go on. Traditional secondary education, but
the reason I really wanted you to define apprenticeship is because I often hear from academics, community colleges, school boards, oh, we do apprenticeship.
Yeah,
and I'm always like, you do?
That's right. That's right.
How are your people getting their on-the-job training?
That's right, exactly.
Because they obviously are not doing apprenticeship; they're doing adult ed, and they're trying to teach something in a lab, and they're giving you a certification.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, now go do this job. And it's just not right. It's not. First of all, the terminology is wrong. Secondly, it's woefully inadequate. Right. So to your point about the industry, sort of leading the training and leading the education is what has made it especially in the state of Florida, it has made apprenticeship such an impactful model for success. Mm-hmm. And there's other things you and I often talk about in meetings, right? And I would love for you to get into that sort of how Florida law dictates that you cannot charge a tuition for apprenticeship. Mm-hmm. The whole progressive wage scale year by year, and the fact that it takes time. Like you're talking about 2,000 hours a year. And there's how many working hours? 2080, I think, is the number of hours, right? Uh-huh. In a year. And 2,000 you have to be on the job.
Right.
And then on top of that, you have to go to class. And, tomorrow, by the way, if you're listening to this on the Friday when the episode gets released, tomorrow is our graduation ceremony in Pembroke Pines. Shoot us an email.
For our actual apprentices.
Are
graduating,
Yeah.
100 and how many?
140 apprentices are graduating tomorrow.
Which is a large class.
And we, and these are people who have had jobs for the 4 years or 3 years or whatever, however long their program was. And then they have gone to classes at night. Yep. And the sheer number of them that have had perfect attendance records. I remember last year's graduation, 17.
Yeah.
So no, it was 21. It was 21 students had perfect attendance last year. Yeah. And I was blown away by that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I went through 4 years of college and not working at night. And I can tell you, I didn't have perfect attendance on any of my classes.
Right.
And it's just as mind blowing to me what dedicated students these guys are and gals are. And how hard they work. So if you've never been to an ABCI graduation, it is tomorrow.
Yeah, walk up. We'll get you a spot. We have a lunch. Yep. If you want to stay for the lunch, great. Or if you want to just
see the ceremony.
See the ceremony. Come on out. We'd love to.
Yeah. Just shoot us an email at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. So, we'll take care of that. Yep. So shout out to graduation tomorrow. And shout out to our events team that does an incredible job putting on this graduation.
Absolutely. And I'm very proud of our graduation.
Oh, yeah.
I see, not to knock other graduations around the country, but I don't think few do it like we do. So it is the
lunch, the families, the
cap and gown,
the music.
They deserve it. So
and we have we have an amazing guest speaker or a graduation speaker coming tomorrow from Washington D.C. He's the head of workforce development. His name is Troy Selberg, and we're excited to have him host him as well tomorrow at the ceremony. Yep. So you will definitely get an insight into kind of where apprenticeship is headed, and especially under this administration where it has gotten a ton of attention and a ton of resources to help grow it. And we have touched on a fraction of what I wanted to talk about, but we are running out of time. So I wanted to give you the last few minutes.
101? Did we cover all the basics?
We didn't cover all the basics. We might have to do a part 2. But I wanted to share with you, I wanted to give you the opportunity to sort of, we literally just defined apprenticeship, and we haven't even gotten into the benefits of all of this yet.
Right, so, right.
We should just do a part 2. Let's just do a part 2 on this. Stay tuned. Next Friday, you'll see part 2 on this episode. And we do want to thank you for listening and honoring us with your time, because this is an important subject. I don't want to just cut it short and then assume that we have done all we talked about this.
But it's not going away, and it's an ancient form of education, and education and training. So you might as well learn a little bit about the terminology and the things that are used. It's not going away. So it's very, very important.
And we really want to highlight sort of the fact that it works so well in Florida. if you're listening to us in a different state and
For a few
apprenticeship
primary
isn't
reasons.
working,
Maybe we can get at, again, 101. Maybe we can get at the next episode.
So we will see you next week, and we'll talk about apprenticeship or workforce development 101 part 2.
right.
Thank you for joining us.
And for comments, send us an email at theobvious@abceastflorida.com. We'll see you next week. Ciao.